Good morning, Tommy. You're live.
Hey, Rich. Good morning.
Good morning, brother. So glad to have you on the show, man.
And
For those that don't know, my name is Rich Brown, co-host, co-founder of the American Warrior Society, American Warrior Show, and you are watching American Warrior Show. This will eventually become a podcast when Mr. Mike Sieglander edits it up, puts our sponsor reads in there, and gets it out there. So if you're listening to us, please share this content with somebody that's going to need it, because the need for our places of worship here in the United States of America to be somewhat hardened and secure so that people can go in there and worship their Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, or whoever that may be. For me, that's who it is, in safety, and know that their family is going to be safe in his place of worship. Tommy is the founder of Protect This House, and I will read his bio real quick. Tommy Sapp has spent over 15 years in law enforcement, serving in roles ranging from detective, patrol sergeant. He went on to lead as commander of a regional SWAT team for 4 years, overseeing hundreds of successful missions and directing high-stakes operations. Tommy also managed a multi-agency drug task force and worked extensively in schools, where he helped design active shooter response procedures and trained school resource deputies to respond effectively under pressure. Today, Tommy is the founder of Protect His House, an organization dedicated to equipping churches and ministries to safeguard their congregations. For nearly a decade, he has trained thousands of church leaders and safety team members across our great nation, combining tactical expertise with a heart for ministry. His mission is clear: to empower churches to protect their people while staying focused on their greater calling. Tommy, so good to have you.
ready. I'm glad to be here. Excited. Got some good stories for you from the SWAT days, man.
Oh, heck yeah, buddy. I'm all about that. Let's see, man. I've got, Tommy, what I did was I put a link in today's show notes that lists all the attacks on places of worship here in the United States. And when you start looking over this list that I've got here, you're going to be literally dumbstruck. Because here in America, we have, and I know you know this, Tommy, and those watching us, we have such a short attention span, and we kind of, it breaks the news and we go, oh my God, that's so awful. We clutch our pearls, and then we go back to whatever we were doing a moment ago.
Yeah.
But in reality, these things are, the FBI stats are very, very clear. There's an increase in these attacks. According to the Family Research Council, incidents of hostility against U.S. churches have grown dramatically since 2001. Over 400 incidents documented in both 2023 and 2024. And of course, the spectacular ones, like the murder was at Michigan, Tommy.
Yeah, the one we just had in Michigan, Grand Blanc Township.
Yeah, where they set the place on fire. I mean, just staggering.
Yeah.
Staggering that this would happen.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It is, man. Michael Gentili is on. Says, good morning, gentlemen. Will Rhodes is on. Says, good morning, Rich and Tommy. He is coin number 2269 up in Missouri. And if you want to find out if becoming a coin member of our self-preservation, self-defense community is the right decision for you guys, you're going to have to take a free test drive to find out. Tell me what compelled you to create Protect This House and focus on church security?
Sure. So I was already working in ministry. I lived in Florida back when I was in law enforcement, and been working in ministry for a while, working with the church. I had a very large training organization in Florida, still have it, where we focused on firearms training, self-defense, and really wanted to provide something to the church. Back then, it wasn't as popular. We were already having church shootings, and there were other companies doing it. But, when our company, Protect His House, came out, there wasn't a ton of these companies doing that sort of training. And I knew there was a need for it because the church was such a soft target, because the security team wasn't really a big thing back then. And so we put it into place to try to strengthen the security of our churches. And before it became this big popular thing like it is now, there, people realize the need for it now. And so just wanted to give back to the church. It was always a passion project for me. I've always been very passionate about it. I know how to train active shooter from my past experience in law enforcement. And so it was just a natural fit.
Now that makes sense. And I was talking to, in the green room, we were talking about yesterday after I left the rain session, we were having lunch at Salsaritas. Now that you're a Tennessean, have you eaten at Salsaritas yet?
I haven't yet. No, sir.
Oh, Tommy, I might have to take you to Salsaritas, brother.
I'm getting fat here in Tennessee, by the way, because the food here is ridiculous.
Well, I know, brother. It's a struggle, isn't it? Especially at our age.
Yeah.
But we were talking about it, I said, I don't have a lot of gifts to offer my Savior and His calling. I don't think I'd be good at mission work or helping, put drywall up on some, widow or orphans. But I do have a set of skills over 23 years in the Marine Corps and several years in law enforcement and training folks across the country for a long time. That if called upon to give those gifts, I'm happy to do it, but I'm not going to feel bad about those gifts. And I think that sounds like where you were too. Like, look, man, I got a gift I can give. The church sees a need. Let me help out here.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And so we kind of take it. To me, it's a ministry, and it's biblical. I mean, we hear all the time, like, let's just pray and God will protect us, and that's good. We got to be prayed up. We got to pray for God's protection. But even in the Bible, Nehemiah prayed and then he took action. Nehemiah prayed and he posted guards. Jesus told his disciples to pray and watch. And so faith has to be followed by action. And that, like you said, that's my skill set. And it's really just evolved over the years and learning how to work with churches. That was a big mistake I made on the front end of this company. Was I thought I was going in and training SWAT teams, and the training started way up here, and we had to bring it back down to, okay, what are we doing here? We're trying to lead people to Christ. And at the same time, we're training people to have the mindset of, yeah, I'm going to pray for you and minister to you and help you. But if I have to, I'll kill you if you're trying to kill these people inside this church.
That's absolutely right. Violence in places of worship. I pulled some data before knowing that I was going to be talking to you, Tommy. Data from the Dolan Consulting Group showed that from 2000 to 2016, there were an average of 97 serious violent incidents reported each year in places of worship. And of course, that's within jurisdictions covered by the National Incident-Based Reporting System. So that's not capturing everything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And after looking at the data, the report estimated that about 480 incidents of serious violence resulting in approximately 46 deaths and 218 serious injuries. And I bring that up because it speaks to not everything that the church is going to encounter security related is a shooting problem. Most of it is an estranged husband, who attends a different place of worship, and he doesn't want his or her child taken to Church of Christ or whatever. So he's going to show up at the church, try to get them back. I mean, there's all these things that are just, how do you handle it without disrupting people, I would imagine, right, Tommy?
Right. Well, yeah, that's exactly right. That was a big mistake I made again at the front of this. Starting the business was we only focused on active shooter, and there's so many safety issues, especially now, that church security has to deal with. Custody issues, like you said, or domestic violence issues spilling over. De-escalation is a big thing that we teach, how to talk people down, how to get them away from the congregation, how to stop something before it starts, behavioral indicators, red flags, things to look for, as well as, things like a missing child, what to do if a child goes missing, or if there's a tornado or fire or weather emergency. And so there's so many aspects to church security. It's not just active shooter. You're exactly right.
Yeah. So, speaking of like security, and this can be physical security, Tommy, or whatever you want to make it. But what are the most common security vulnerabilities you see in our churches?
Oh man, well, not having a team to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of churches that have nothing. There's a lot of churches that have, one or two guys, and it's, Bill and Bob, and they've got their concealed permit and they're keeping an eye on things for us. And that's better than nothing, because like I said, a lot of churches have nothing. Not having personnel, not having a team at all to watch things, not having parking lot security. That's a big one. Perimeter is huge right now. It's always been huge. That should be your first line of defense, is your perimeter. But as we've seen in these recent shootings, it seems to almost be a trend right now. I mean, yeah. It wasn't a church shooting, but Charlie Kirk. We had the shooting up in at the Catholic school in Minneapolis. That was a guy from across the street shooting in. This one in Michigan we just had, he came with a truck and rammed into the sanctuary. And so just having people out watching the perimeter, or not having people out doing that, is a big vulnerability.
Yeah, you and I touched on that very, very briefly prior to coming on the show. And this is the first job I took as a bouncer, I did that for 4 or 5 years at a lot of different clubs.
Yeah, I did.
They had what's that?
I did that too. I was a bouncer.
Well, there you go. Right.
Yeah.
Birds of a feather, right, Tommy?
Right.
But where I'm going with this is the first one I worked at was probably the best. And that is they had a really robust parking lot security.
Yeah.
Guys that would help girls walk to their car. They got flashlights, radios, and they kind of hey, Rich, the guy in the purple jacket, I don't think that dude needs to come in, man. When he got out of his car, he's stumbling, he stinks. This is not a good call. And as a doorman, I'm like, okay, roger that, and we just kind of move him on back to his car.
Mm-hmm.
And then we pat everybody down, wand the women down, search the purses so that when they go inside, now, of course, we're not going to do that to a church. I understand that. I'm not implying that. What I'm saying is I absolutely agree with you. If you don't have parking lot, then you're going to be dealing with a problem inside the place of worship that could have been easily mitigated on the outside.
Yeah. And there's all different levels. So to the security of the parking lot, we've got churches that have none. People just park and they walk in. We have churches that have ushers and greeters. Most of the ushers and greeters haven't received any training. They don't even know what to look for. Some churches have, depending on the size, they've got parking lot attendees, but most of those guys aren't trained. But then you have churches that, they got their stuff together. I've worked with a team right here in Murfreesboro, and they've got 65 people on their security team. I mean, it's a massive team, but all their parking lot, their greeters, their ushers, they've got people in the foyer. They've got a law enforcement officer they pay to be there. But, a lot of that churches don't have that type of money either to pay for law enforcement or have that amount of people to be recruiting 60 people. But there's things they can do too. Even churches with small budgets, there's things they can do. We've got training now for ushers and greeters. That's not something you see very often, but training just what to look for. And then if you see it, what to do. If you see it, how to communicate that to the people that are going to take action.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what John says here. He says we call our group safety team ministry because it's and I think you'd agree with me on this one. It's not just, again, a shooting problem or an arm barring somebody out of the place or telling a deranged, father looking for his kid, that this isn't the time and place. This isn't appropriate. Let's go over here. Let's make a phone call, see if they're even in the building, etc. It's also making sure that Pastor Dan isn't going to trip over his audio wire on the way up to the stage. It's also making sure smoke alarms are there and working properly. And we have all those kind of egress points and all that kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm, right. Yeah. And, obviously there's people call it safety team, security team. I personally don't get hung up on it too much, but I know there's some legalities to that, especially some states. If you call it a security team, you've got to have specific training, certifications through that state to call it that, or you can get hemmed up on that, or even insurance reasons. But, the word safety for me is like you just said, it's not just stopping an active threat. It's all aspects of safety, the team should be responsible for. And it really starts, to me, that really starts with a good SOP, good protocols. That's something else we do. We help teams build out their SOPs and their team manuals. Having that stuff into place when they onboard somebody new, showing them what they're responsible for, what the expectations are, and just having that stuff into place is huge. A lot of teams don't have that. That's a big one. When you talked about vulnerabilities, is there's no SOP, there's no protocol. Somebody gets on the team and it's just like, hey, I want you to stand by the foyer. Your job is to watch the foyer area. I think we got to go a little bit deeper than that now.
Yeah, because what does that even mean? You're going to watch the foyer.
Yeah.
What am I watching for?
Yeah. I mean, it's better than nothing, but I think we can, the whole point of training is to go from here to here and stair step that path. So,
yeah, I think that maybe perhaps people like you and I that have had the profession we've had, we think, well, everybody knows how to, look for somebody.
Yep.
Now, just because you have an XY chromosome doesn't mean you can fight, doesn't mean you can shoot, doesn't mean you can identify pre-attack indicators. You might be better than some, but I will promise you right now, brother, unless you're trained, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, and I've made that mistake several times, Rich, is they should know this, right? It's common knowledge, but it's not. And that's why our training, we try to make it. And then, so the problem is we'll put out a class and the guy that's ex-Navy SEAL that's on their team. He's like, man, this is too basic. Well, we have to start somewhere. We have to have that baseline because everybody else isn't a Navy SEAL, right? And so,
Right.
Trying to develop programs and stair step that training is it's a big step that we've made over the last 10 years to make sure our training's for everybody.
Yeah. Crawl, walk, run. Once.
Right.
Speaking of walk, why don't you walk us through the essential steps of a church what should they do to establish a reliable security team?
Yeah, sure. First, they need to onboard people, and that's a process that most pastors don't know where to start. If they don't have a team in place, they either can make an announcement that, hey, we're putting together a safety team or a security team, and we need volunteers. Or what we offer is we have a 3-hour in-person training. And the whole purpose of that 3-hour active shooter awareness class that we do is not just to train the security team, but also the congregation and the staff and the volunteers. And it's a really good place for a pastor that doesn't have a team yet to open that door. And so first of all, you got to onboard people. You got to find the right people. You got to vet those people. You don't want somebody who's overeager to put hands on somebody or put them on their haircut. We need people with level heads. We need the right people, and then train those people. And you got to have that policy and that protocol in place for what does that training look like, and some sort of standard. So I don't like these teams that go out and they recruit and their only qualification is they have a concealed weapon permit, because that doesn't mean anything. It's better than nothing, but it's not the right way to qualify people. And so having some standards in place and developing out some protocols and onboarding the right people, that's a really good start. And then continual training.
Yeah. So think about this, because you were a commander of a SWAT team for a long time. And I was on a law enforcement special operations team as well there in Knox County Sheriff's Department. And for me, selection and that initial training is everything. I mean, Knox County had like 1,000 officers, but there was 12 of us on the special operations team.
Yep.
And we had to go through a very long vetting process to get allowed to even come to the 2-week course. And then the 2-week course, there's a lot of people that rang the bell and said, I don't want to do this. And then ultimately all the team members that watched us for 2 weeks had to give a unanimous thumbs up that you get to come in.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if we had to go in and do something, only 4 dudes showed up to when the pager went off. I'm dating myself, but then we went in with 4 guys, and period. And I knew that those guys, when they squeeze your shoulder, it's go time. Nobody's getting. And so I say all of that to just completely agree with you, man. You got a concealed carry permit? That's great, brother. That's a start. Now we're going to put you through the training. And when you sign up for this, in my opinion, you tell me if I'm wrong, we got standards, we got SOPs, we got protocols we're going to follow. If you don't follow them, hey man, it was great having you, brother. I love you, but this ain't going to work out, and you're moved on. And then we have to do some sort of recurring training and recertification process so that we continue. And maybe I'm too militaristic on that, because that's just what my mind knows, but it seems to work, man.
Yeah. So exactly. But a couple of things. One is, my experience as a SWAT commander was at an agency, not really a large agency. I'd say we had 50 deputies. And so we didn't have this huge pool to pick from. And that's what I hear from a lot of churches is like, well, that's great, but I only have, 4 people that stepped up. And so with what you just said, I totally agree. I'd rather have 4 squared away people that are good to go than 20 that are just, okay, and they got their permit. And so I'd rather have some squared away guys. But at the same time, you can train to that as well. Now, you've seen it. There's certain people that you can't get to that level. They're just not made for it, and that's okay. But you can train them. You can take them from here to here if you do it the right way. And that's what I had to do as a SWAT commander where I was at. Was I didn't have this huge pool. And so, but I knew I had to have a certain amount of people on my team if we're going to go, kick in doors and run a stack through a house. And so I had to pick people that weren't Navy SEALs. They weren't the best. And we had to train them to get to that point. And so that's one thing you can do as a safety team or security team is still pick the best people. You don't need 100 people. Just pick a few good guys and train together consistently. Hold a standard, make them take these qualifications, make them go out to the range, show that they know how to shoot, show that they know how to shoot under pressure, not just know how to shoot, and get them to that level.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I like your point you talked briefly about during what you just said. I could take Miss Betty, who's a retired school teacher who works the coffee bar, give her an earpiece and some training on spotting pre-attack indicators, and she could be a huge asset. She don't have to put her hands on nobody. She don't have to carry anything. She can be like, I smell smoke in the auditorium. Or there's a guy coming in right now. He's sweating. He's wearing a coat. He's acting agitated. Can somebody get the guy in the red coat and just kind of talk to him for some? I would imagine she has a place in something like that.
Everybody. Yeah. There's a role for everybody. There's a role for the parking lot attendee, the ushers and greeters, the children's church workers. They should be trained too. The people working with the children, those are most vulnerable. How do I lock down? What are the procedures for that? A lot of churches don't think about that. Or how do I get them out of the building? That's the best case scenario. If there's an active shooter in the sanctuary, get them out away from the building, go into the woods, wherever you got to go, get away from it. I don't like, locking down can be valuable, but if you can get away and get out of the building, that's number one. But they don't have that type of training to know what to do. And so, but there is a place for every single person in the church, even the congregation member, and that's why we do that level 1 class, because families that are there, there's a role for them to play, even if it's just to protect their family and get them out of the church. They need to have their own personal plan in place as well.
Yeah. I had read somewhere in my notes preparing this, I was trying to find it, Tommy, that talked about a lot of these incidents are, again, low level. I think we spoke around that, but let's welcome some folks onto the show. Brian Schuler is on in North Texas. Derek is on in North Carolina. Bruce is on from Michigan. He's coin number 481. Mark is on up there in Ontario, Canada. Okay, you talked about limited resources, and this is one that I was talking about with my training partners and my good friends yesterday. And they're like, man, we've only got like maybe 150 people that go to our church. I'm like, okay, let's look at that. Mm-hmm. Let's say we're primarily selecting for the XY chromosomes of the congregation. So you probably got 50% of them. So now we're down to 55 people. 30% of them are going to be elderly and can't really handle the robust nature of this, whether it's taking someone down or doing what have you. 30% are probably, and we're whittling it down. I'm like, you got a pool of maybe 20 people. Of that, I need 5 or 10 to have a really good team. Right. And I think it's also how you package it, right? And that how the pastor comes out and says, hey, this is what we're going to do. He lets people know it's in the bulletin. It's sent out in an email and let everybody know we've got this 3-hour presentation from Tommy. It's open to anybody. And after that, we're going to have basically an altar call for those that feel led to be a part of the church security team. I mean, have you seen a really good way to kind of just crack open the discussion?
Yeah, I think like you just said, I think an announcement, every church has their announcements at the beginning. So if you want to be part of this safety team, get with Brother John and let him know that you want to be part of it. That's one way to do it. Hand picking, that's another thing that a lot of pastors will do. Maybe they don't want to make that sort of announcement because a lot of pastors, and this is changing, but a lot of pastors, they don't want anybody to even know about the security team, right? This is kind of a thing that's just done on the side. Nobody knows they're there. That's changing a little bit because honestly, people in the church want to know that somebody's there to protect them, especially with all this stuff going on. They don't feel safe. And so that's changing a little bit where the pastor's not so worried about that. So making an announcement, I think, is okay. Letting people know we do have a safety team in place. We have security on staff to protect you and your family. I think that's not such a taboo thing anymore.
That's good. So for churches with limited resources, how can they enhance their security or start one? I know we kind of talked around it, but is it as simple as giving, here in Tennessee or elsewhere, a call to someone like you? I mean, is there anything else they can kind of do?
Yeah, of course. Here's my salesman. Call us for one. We have classes of different levels. Even if they don't, it's not the right time to do an in-person training, we've got online courses. And those online courses, of course, online's never as good as in person, but it's still valuable. There's classes to bring structure to your team, to build your communication, to talk about what to look for in those red flags and indicators, talk about response to every type of emergency. But if you can get us there in person, we have a 3-hour and an 8-hour class. Either one of those classes is great because it starts to open your mind up to, number one, could happen in my church, even though we've always said it would never happen here. Well, there's small churches it's happened to. There's big churches it's happened all over the place. It opens up your mind to what to look for, and it develops out a plan for you personally, but then as a team. And then we also, while we're there at all of our classes, we always do an assessment. So we'll talk to them about who they have on staff for their security team now. What are the positions? What are the roles and responsibilities? What are you doing for perimeter? Do you have cameras? Do you have radios? If you do, what kind do you got? Do you got IFAC kits? Where are they staged at? AEDs? What about the children's ministry? And so we kind of just give a full assessment and give them recommendations and give them a checklist to start working towards, starting with priority number 1 all the way through the last priority. Priority number 1 being we got to strengthen the perimeter. And so that's part of what we do is give that assessment. But you could do that on yourself too. There's tons of tools online. There's even some on our website for giving your church an assessment, your own personal assessment, and starting working towards getting to where you want to be.
I love that. And if you're listening this morning or in the podcast to come and you're going, what's an IFAC kit? Then you're already on the Parker. Individual first aid kit. And he also said AED, automated electronic defibrillator, because again, not everything's a gunfight in the house of worship. It's going to be, Pastor Tom, who's 84 years old, and he passes out at the lectern. And what are we going to do? Who's the one that's going to be responsible for that?
Yeah, the security team. That's the biggest issue they face is medical emergencies.
That's right.
That's the number one thing you're going to face. So, and a lot of them, most of them train for that, but then used to. But IFAC kits, man, save lives. Tourniquets, just having tourniquets around. If this happens, having tourniquets around can save lives.
Yeah. Let's see here. Is there an ideal candidate that people should be looking for in the congregation? Like, and again, I'm not talking about the Navy SEAL, but what training and background should the church security team what's the ideal person look like? I guess, do you have something like that?
Yeah. Well, I personally think prior law enforcement's great. Any type of first responder is great to have on your team. Firearms instructors, prior military, those are your, top choices. But then, the firearms guy who knows how to shoot, who trains a lot, who thinks about safety and watches videos and understands, threat assessment, things like that. And then under that is just level-headed people, people that are teachable, that are trainable, and aren't just ready to use their gun. They're not waiting on that moment, or they're not over eager to drop somebody onto the ground. Middle-aged guy with all this gray hair like me. Last thing I want to do is get in a fight with somebody. Definitely the last thing I want to do is have to shoot somebody. Nobody should want to do that. And so that type of person is who I'm looking for.
No, I love it, man. Yeah. I think the psychological assessment, it would be nice if everybody could kind of take something and who's the right candidate, but just like you do in law enforcement. But of course, that's not necessarily appropriate, perhaps. But I like your conversation there. But we don't want to turn a church into like a Fort Knox, like they're going in through TSA to get in. That definitely is not something we want. So how do you kind of make it more overt less overt and more covert, Tommy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think it's just keeping that ministry mindset. And for me, it's as a greeter or somebody on the safety team, I want to be able to smile at people, shake their hands, pray over them if they need it, minister to them, be welcoming, lead them to Christ. That's what we're there for, is to lead them to Christ. But at the same time, have the right mindset of, if I've got to do this, if I've got to take somebody down or take somebody out or put hands on somebody, I'm ready and trained to do that. And so it really is a fine line they have to walk. As far as, being inconspicuous goes, most safety teams, security teams, they don't care. They don't wear, the polo shirt that says security. If they're wearing, like me and you right now, other than my hat, just nice church clothes. Nobody even knows they're on the team. And I like that. I like to, I don't want to know who they are. But then there's some teams that do wear the security shirts, and that's okay too, because there's pros and cons to both. Mm-hmm. Wearing that gear and everybody knows we have a security team in place. There's a cop at the front door. I feel a lot safer coming to that church, especially right now.
Yeah.
And so there are pros and cons to both. The cons of wearing that is you're my first target when I walk in there if I'm a bad guy.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. I would rather it be pretty covert and just like federal air marshals. My partner was the head firearms instructor for the federal air marshals right after 9/11. And they're undercover for a reason. They only break cover when it's time to shoot somebody in the face. If it's just a routine domestic thing going on in an airplane, they're going to sit there and sip on their ginger ale and watch it happen and watch the flight attendants do it. They're only breaking cover when it's necessary.
Yeah. And along the lines of what you said, when I worked in the schools, that was a big thing. Is we were putting all these procedures into place, all these security protocols. We were putting locks on doors and different new equipment that would come out. And then the talk would come up about metal detectors. Do we want to put metal detectors at the front door? And principal, school board are like, no way. We don't want our kids going, we're not sending them to jail here, And so that was a big no-no. Same thing with the church. It's got to be welcoming. You're not walking into Fort Knox. You're walking into the house of the Lord. And that's, if you start making it too much like that, it does push people away a little bit, and so we're not running a jail, right? We're running the church here. So I think that is important to know the difference and to not have too much stuff into place where it looks like you're, walking into Fort Knox.
And that's why I don't like it. This is just me personally. Maybe I'm just talking off the cuff. Maybe I haven't thought it through all the way, but I don't like a uniformed police officer that's getting paid overtime pay. Now, if they need to handle traffic flow out there, get a busy road and thousands of cars coming in at once and coming out, that's a place for them. But maybe having their police car out in the parking lot. Yeah. I mean, there's some utility there, but I definitely don't want them standing at the door, man. I think that's not a place for them.
Yeah.
It sends a chilling effect that, I don't know. It doesn't need to be. What you need to have is a well-trained, well-disciplined, well-equipped church security team, well-selected, that can handle these things. Razmik is on. He says, good morning, Rich, and good morning, everyone else. Glad to have you on the show, my dear friend. Is there any kind of community involvement that needs to be done? Is there any way to bring the community together outside the church that can assist with this or no, Tommy?
Outside the church, I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, you can, for training wise, bringing in, a lot of churches bring in like the fire department, or different resources from the community for training. Also for equipment. A lot of churches can't afford IFACs. They can't afford AEDs. They can't afford the training even. We've got companies that we'll work with that'll sponsor a training where we'll come to a church and they can't afford it. And I'll say, well, hold on, don't say no yet. Let me reach out to some of our partners and we'll get it sponsored. And so financially, some churches aren't there, and the community can come together to help them. I know a guy that goes around putting IFAC kits in churches. And what he does, he's got a nonprofit. And gosh, don't ask me the name of it. That's horrible that I don't know it. But he goes around, he talks to these churches, finds out who doesn't have IFAC kits, and then he goes in the community and gets sponsors to purchase them and puts them inside the church. And it's a really great thing he's doing. Yeah,
I used to, as regular viewers of the show will know, I ran the Red Cross disaster relief for the state of Tennessee. And, so Red Cross is a great resource to get the AED training, the stop the bleed training, and CPR training and stuff like that. It costs either nominal amount of money or no money, and they can even bring it to you.
Yeah.
So they're a great resource that you can plug into in the community.
No doubt. Yeah, they're out there. Yeah, and then we've tried to make one thing I've tried to do with this company is make it affordable. Mm-hmm. And so when I talk to a church and they're trying to book something with me, I'm like, okay, well, here's the flat rate. Here's the price. I got to be able to pay my instructors. I got to be able to put them in hotels and travel. So there's a lot of overhead that goes into this. And sometimes they hear that number like, no way, it's not in the budget. And I try to work with them. And that could either be, like I said, through a sponsorship or, hey, instead of charging this flat fee, why don't we waive that and you guys just pay, whoever wants to attend can pay individually. You're going to host us. We'll waive that. It's, $30 per person. Let us reach out to the other churches in the community and make this a community event where other churches all come together to one spot to train. That's worked very well for us. And I'm still able to pay my instructors. When I first started this, I'll be honest with you, Rich, I had another company. So I have another company called Focus Fire Training. I have another company called Legal Heat. Those are concealed carry, self-defense classes, legal heats, and all the box stores like Sportsman's Warehouse. Those were making my money and paying the bills. This company, I was taking a loss. I was honestly doing it for, too little. And we took a loss almost every class for a long time. And so can't do that anymore, but I still try to make it affordable because churches don't have it. Some do, and some don't have it in the budget. There's also grants. I've worked with a lot of churches that get grants, these federal grants where the government will give them money for tools, equipment, and also for training. And so if they call me and they say I got a grant, I'm like, yeah, let's go, man. I'll take the government's money any day.
You and me both. Maybe let it do some good for a change. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
From 2012 to 2022, shootings accounted for 40% of violent attacks on houses of worship, but caused 94% of the fatalities. And I say that because 60% of the violent attacks on churches don't involve firearms. They involve something else. It could be an axe. It could be whatever. Dr. Gordon Botson is on. Good morning, sir. He's up there in Ohio, coin number 1688. And I believe one of the things that we need to think about, although Christian churches account for a vast majority of the attacks on churches, it's really a per capita situation. Like if you were to look at it, attacks on mosques and Jewish synagogues are more prevalent relatively. But the ones on Christians, because there's just far more, they get the attention, but proportionally. So, and I think this is something that you don't have to be a Christian to take this church security thing. I mean, if you're Jewish or you're Muslim, you want to protect your mosque from something like this and let your attendees feel safe to worship in their way. Would you work with them as well?
Oh, yeah. We've worked with a lot of synagogues, a lot in the Jewish community, and especially right now with everything in the Middle East going on and this deal with Israel and Iran and Hamas and all that. I mean, the attack on the Jewish community, it's there. We don't hear about it very much, but they're in just as much danger as anybody right now, if not more.
If not more so, I would agree with that.
So they really need to be thinking about training. And yes, 100%. Any house of worship will work with them.
Good. And that brings up another one of the stats I pulled up prior to our conversation this morning. Hate was the most frequent motivation for the attacks, especially for mass shootings. Between 2012 and 2022, racial, ethnic, or religious hatred was cited as the motive in almost half of the attacks documented by the AMARC Foundation. And like you said, let something like Palestine issue or what have you that's inflaming these people that are already homicidal, suicidal, deranged, freaking, they think the government put a plan in their brain. I don't know what's going on with these people these days, Tommy, but whatever's motivating them, man, it seems to be they're attacking places like this. And maybe it's because they view it like a school. This is a gun-free zone, so I can go in here and rack my numbers up and do it, safely.
Yeah. Well, and we know that there's a spiritual battle going on too. there's this evil in this world. And to me, there's different levels of evil. I mean, somebody that can go in like Sutherland Springs happened, 7 years ago. I believe 26 people were killed in that one, ranging from ages 18 months. I mean, we're talking about a baby all the way up to grandmas and grandpas, whole families killed. Somebody that's that evil and that much rage and hate. I mean, they have no empathy. They're almost like in a zombie-like state when they go into these places, and they don't care. It's just like you said, racking up numbers. How many people can I kill? It's this false sense of power, that they get every time they kill somebody. It's this grandiose power that they achieve by doing that, I guess. I don't know, but I know behind all of that, there's a spiritual battle going on, 100%. And why do they target churches? It's in the Bible. We're going to face persecution. There's going to be attacks. It's been happening since Bible days. And so I believe that there's a spiritual battle behind all of that.
I 100% agree with you. Alan Kelly's on. Says, good morning, gents. Coin number 1571 from occupied Virginia. Running late. I am part of my church safety team, setting up policy, procedures, and operations. That's the place to start.
Yep. Sure.
And then I would look at selection, make sure you got the right people. One of the things that when we were talking yesterday at lunch, I said, somebody that is a concealed carrier that doesn't want to go through the training, that doesn't want to, participate and follow the TTPs, the tactics, techniques, and procedures that we're going to put in place once we train and organize and equip for this mission, this ministry, to use your words, Tommy. That's fine. Carry your concealed firearm. I'm not saying you can't, or I would never deny anybody their God-given right to carry a firearm. I don't think you would either. But let's use that firearm to shepherd you and your family out of the thing. Let the guys that are trained, equipped, and ready to go handle the threat, and you just use that for your family. I'm just trying to think how I would handle the concerns that the congregation may come up with if you're trying to stand up something like that.
Yeah. Well, so going back to another incident, White Settlement Church, that was where Jack Wilson, who had been trained, guys came into the building. There were some mistakes made on that one. And I'm sure Jack will tell you that himself. He's done some training events with us.
Can you break that one down to Tommy on what happened there?
Yeah.
I know, but I don't know. People may not know.
So guy comes into the sanctuary. He's got all the behavior indicators. He's talking to himself. He's got baggy clothing on. He's nervous. He's fidgeting. The security team sees him. And so they decide, well, we're going to keep an eye on this guy. So he sits down on the left side of the sanctuary. The security guy positions himself behind him. There's another usher that's also part of their team. He was back behind him. And guy stands up and pulls a 12-gauge shotgun from underneath his jacket. The security guy directly behind him was carrying his handgun behind his back in the lower of his back. As he tried to draw it, he was too slow. He was shot and killed. The usher that was there was also shot and killed. Both great people, both really good friends of Jack's. Then the shooter starts moving towards the front of the church. Jack, who is very trained, pulls out his handgun, takes one shot, shoots the guy in the back of the head. Amazing shot, by the way. Across the sanctuary, under that level of stress, one shot to the back of the head, this guy would have probably killed the pastor, killed children, families, I don't know. But he was out to kill people. And so Jack stopped that shooting, did an excellent job. And so what I was going to say about that incident, though, is when you talk about concealed carriers, if you watch towards the end of that video, this was out in Texas, man. In Texas, everybody carries a gun. And after Jack shot him, you'll see about 20 other people stand up with their concealed permits, and everybody's getting flagged, Yeah. They're just pointing them all over the place. And, man, I'll tell you, flags, going into training, I'll go down my rabbit trail here.
Please.
Sympathetic reflex. Whatever this hand does at 100%, this one does at 50. So I was on a SWAT call out one time, and we put a sniper in the backyard. We were to barricade his subject. He'd been held up in this house for a good 10 hours. It's the middle of the summer and down in Florida. Everybody's hot. The captain's going around, and me and him are good friends now, but I'd let him tell the story. He's going around with waters and throwing them to people. Hey, you need a drink? Stay hydrated. He goes out to this sniper, tosses him a water, and he goes to grab it, and this finger's on the trigger, and guess what happens?
Oh no.
Big reflex. He fires around to the ground. Everybody, shots fired. Everybody's running around. If you're flagging people, and that's one of the big things I train when I'm training these guys, that's a big no-no, because if something happens, you get startled, somebody throws you a water bottle, you're going to fire off a round. So in that incident, there's 20 people just waving their guns around, and it got a little dangerous. So that is one thing that you should at least be aware of, especially if you're in Texas. Everybody's got a gun.
Welcome to Tennessee. Everybody got a gun here too.
See too.
Matter of fact, don't leave home without it. Dr. Gordon Botson says, I am on my synagogue security team. So there you go. God bless. Let's see. Let me go down to my questions here. What are some of the key physical security measures that churches often overlook, and how can they better address them?
Yeah. Cameras is, again, that goes to budget, but if you can't afford cameras, there are grants to get you cameras. Locking doors, something as simple as locking a door. Pastor comes in the back door, leaves it unlocked. Well, he just left that open for whoever else wants to come in there. So I did an assessment at a church. They hired me a couple weeks ago to come in and wear plain clothes and walk around and just see, give an assessment of how their team does. And one of the biggest mistakes they made was they had several doors on the exterior perimeter that were unlocked. I was able to walk through one of those doors right into where the children's department was. So big mistake, but so easily to happen. It's something I saw in the schools when I was working in schools, teachers leaving doors unlocked. It's just another way to barricade and stop and buy some time. So Sutherland Springs shooting I just talked about. Mm-hmm. If I remember correctly, it was 11 minutes. That's a lifetime. Somebody was shooting people. So one of the things we teach is trying to buy time for your security team to get there and stop the threat, or for law enforcement to get there and stop the threat. And so locked doors, it seems so small, but it's such a big thing. So if you're on a security team, you should have somebody walking around checking doors, because even if it's protocol for the entire church and everybody knows they're supposed to be locked, somebody will leave them unlocked. So something simple like that, having cameras in place. There's ways to lock up your children's department. There's different types of systems that they have. Check-in, check-out systems are great. Some churches don't have anything for that. And of course, fire procedures, fire alarms, things like that. Most churches have that. That's been around for so long. How many fires have we seen at churches, though? Well, I shouldn't say that. We just had Michigan. But just a fire drill, people should evacuate. Not very often, but we train for that like crazy. And so those type of things can help strengthen up a church's security.
Yeah, one of my good friends, Todd Fox, he runs a company called Tour Protection, and he guards, Motley Crue tour, and anybody and everybody that's done it. Look him up. He's a former Marine, 4th degree BJJ guy, done a lot of stuff. Really, really good guy. He has when the artist is up on stage, there's a one of those spinning lights, and the head of the operational manager hits that button and the light goes off, and everybody knows it's time to do their thing. So again, it doesn't have to be high tech, it doesn't have to be expensive, but I mean, we probably should. I mean, I remember my first time as a Marine embarked on a Navy ship. One of the first things we did before we left port was you had to blindfold yourself and get up to the fantail so that you could get off the ship, and we did it multiple times. But again, that's why I think the military and law enforcement has a lot of these protocols that we take for granted. We just know that this is what you do. But for a church that's setting this up perhaps for the first time, this is going to be a lot of foreign terrain for them, which is why I think your earlier point, Tommy, was let's plug into those former military guys, former law enforcement guys that know a little bit about physical security. Yeah. And even if we can't pay for Protect His House to come out and do the full package, maybe we can take some of the online training. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they're in, we have a lot of folks watching this morning from Northwest Montana, and how to fly your crew up there, that might be a lot, but guess what? You can get online and take advantage of some of that training.
Yep. Speaking of Montana, I just booked a class with a guy up there. I've never been to Montana. He's like, hey man, I'll put you in this resort on the lake. It's beautiful. You come up here with your family for a week, do the training. I'm like, man, I'll do that for free. That's awesome. But yeah, 100%. Talking about online training, I have a 2-hour active attacker course. It's probably an hour and a half, 2 hours online. It was put together by a guy that's been in law enforcement down in Florida for a really long time, knows his stuff. Really great course. If anybody's listening and wants that for their church, I'll give that class away. I want you to have that. It's a great resource. It teaches everybody the ins and outs of active shooter, what to look for, case studies, how to prepare your church team, but also how to prepare yourself personally. And that's something I offer for free. So
where can they go to get that done?
They can go to our website, they can email us, contact@phhtraining.com, contact@phhtraining.com, or go to our website, phhtraining.com. There's a form you can fill out. It says host a class. Fill that form out. Let me know that you want the active shooter training for free, and I'll send it over. And not just to you, for anybody in your church or your team that wants to take it.
And Tommy, if you would, sir, send me those links, and I'll make sure they're in the show notes when the show becomes a live podcast. Okay,
I will.
Kept you on here, dude, almost an hour, and it's gone by fast, my friend. What, as we kind of wrapping it up, man, what are some final thoughts, some experiences you've had, any kind of anecdotes you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, got to train. You never rise to the occasion when something happens. You've heard this. It's been said by every instructor, but you always fall down to your level of training. So when I first got on the SWAT team, I was a baby, man. I was 23 years old still. And going to my first search warrant, I'm jacked up. It's 5 a.m. and the team leader says, you're going to be the breach guy. So he hands me this RAM and he's like, I've never trained with it. I've never been on a search warrant call out. You're going to ram the door. The only thing you need to do is when we call for breach is run up and hit the door handle. I'm like, that's easy, man. I played college baseball. I'm athletic. I can hit a door handle. And so we get there. Bradford County Sheriff's Office search warrant, open the door, locked. They call for the breach. I run up. I swing that thing hard as I can right through the middle of the door instead of the door. And the whole ram goes through the middle of the door. We're out there struggling to try to get it out, and it takes forever to get in this house. And I'm like, it's training, I got that tunnel vision. I got so jacked up on adrenaline. And when you get to that level and your body gets in that fight or flight response, you go back to your training. And so get out to the range. That's number one. If you're going to carry a gun, don't just go out there and shoot a static target, close one eye, that nice trigger press. Put yourself under some stress, even if it's just knock out 15 push-ups and get up and try to shoot that and see what the difference is. And so working under stress, training with your team, the biggest thing that a security team can do to make them better is communicate, talk to each other, not just show up on Sunday and fulfill, your obligation to serve, something you volunteered for, but talking to each other, talking about how can we upgrade, how can we get better. If something happens, how to communicate and communicating with each other through some of these incidents. That's huge.
I love it. Some of our friends attend one of the largest churches in Knoxville. I won't say which one it is out of respect, but they're good Christian folks. And so for years I've been like, hey man, why don't you come and do some BJJ with me? We'll get on the mats and no, my back, and I'm like, okay, cool. Why don't you come to the range with me? I can't. I'm like, well, tell you what, I'm going to shoot this match in 2 months. Here's my challenge to you and your security team. Come out, shoot it. Whatever you got, bring your gear, however we want to set it up. And let's just 8 stages, see how you do, right? The local IDPA match there in Knoxville. So they come out, let's say there's 120, 130 attendees, and 5 guys on their team that came were place number 125 to 130. They were dead last in getting their ass kicked by accountants and plumbers and so on. And guess what? They never, ever came back, which is a shame, instead of, well, we've identified a clear weakness here. There's a lot of work to be done. We're going to set a program. We're going to train. It was just like they got embarrassed and they crawled back in their little man cave and never, ever came out again. And I find that, it's it's negligent. It's just absolutely negligent. I can't believe it, but that's, and I say this to my wife all the time. Sometimes there's nothing as fragile as a male ego. And, and if you come out your first day in jiu-jitsu, you're going to get your ass handed to you. I don't care who you are. The first time on the mats, it's not going to work out well for you. But you keep training, you keep coming back, you refine your technique. Same thing with shooting on the square range. I love the fact that you said you're just going to stand there and punch holes in the target. That's not the kind of training we do with my weekly training group. We got sandbags, we set up stages and scenarios. You're running, pulling, you may be flipping a tire, and then once your heart rate's at 130, now you're going to shoot precise shots at 25 yards and watch everything fall apart. And I just don't understand why a lot of people don't. Maybe they just don't know what they don't know, Tommy.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. If you're on a security team, even if you're not on a team, if you got a family or you're part of the church, it's not an option anymore. It's a duty. It's a responsibility. The attack's on the church already. We already know that. We're not debating that anymore. It could happen to your church. It's no longer, it can never happen here. It's a duty and a responsibility to be trained and ready. And if you're not trained, you don't know what you're going to do, you're just going to go in condition black when it happens, and you're not going to help the situation. So whatever you think you're going to do, you don't know that until you train. And so it's a duty. I think it's a responsibility. You have to get out there and train.
Yeah. So once again, if you have no idea what Tommy means when condition black, you don't know Colonel Jeff Cooper's color code system. Once again, I would submit you're behind the power curve. And that's one of those kind of litmus tests. Hey man, what condition should you be in when you're in the church scanning? I don't know. Okay, we got a problem. Yeah. And the other thing is, we talked about hate crimes, but really in most common attacks on Christian churches where the motive was determined to be interpersonal disputes. Mm-hmm. That's the most common. And of course, hate being a close second. But so these interpersonal disputes could be huge. I mean, when I heard a 1083 coming out on our radio, 1083 was a domestic for us. Yeah. Oh my gosh, shit. Yeah. I mean, because Tennessee changed the law when I was a police officer from you shall arrest to you must arrest. There's that one simple word, shall to must. I know I'm taking somebody to jail. Yeah. I'm gonna have kids screaming and wives upset or husbands upset, and it's gonna go bad. So if you've been in those kind of things, you might know how to handle it better, and you know what they look like and smell like, and you can see them before they start. And then I think maybe there should be some sort of threat assessment. Like if you know that Betty is in the midst of a very ugly custody dispute with Carl, mm-hmm. and she's got a restraining order, and stuff like that, you can again show the perimeter security guys, hey, if Carl shows up, here's a picture of Carl's mugshot. Right. He don't need to come in the sanctuary for any reason.
I'm so glad you said that. Briefings are so important too. Having a team briefing where you get together and talk about things like that, not just things like that. There's resources. There's reports that get put out by the FBI. There's different things you can look at to know, what the nation's temperature is. But then also churches are partnering up with other teams and they're sharing intelligence. I think that's smart. And so having a briefing at the beginning of your church service where you get together, talk about those sort of things, and pray together. Pray over your team, pray over your church. It gets everybody in the right mindset, and it gets everybody on the same page. And so that's very important. I'm glad you said that, Rich.
Yeah. Alan says, you hit the nail on the head, Tommy. Training not only as a group, but as an individual, never stop learning. And Brian says, born and raised and always been a resident of Texas, I can confirm that the firearm demographic here is changing. Only most of us carrying guns, knives, saps, and ... Tommy, this has been a great show, my friend. We definitely need to do a round two. I think we left some meat on the table here, but I think this has been a great conversation to kind of position the discussion and get people thinking. Please, please, please share this show with someone that you know. Share this with your men's group. Share this with the prayer group. Whatever. American Warrior Society has been around since 2014, and I'll be honest with you, man, for the first 10 years, up until probably the last 3 or 4 months, probably since Charlie Kirk's death, I'm completely candid, it kind of changed something in me and my friend Mike Seekland, who started this. Like, we wanted to call it, instead of the American Warrior Society, the American Christian Warrior Society, and then we kind of like, you know what? People in the Jewish community, they need self-defense too. You know, people in the Muslim community, they need, I don't want to pigeonhole anybody, but I think his death is kind of like, it's made me get in the word like, hey man, they're going to hate us for our faith.
Yeah.
And that we just need to be prepared. So I've been more vocal about it. And I think I want to position the thought, because a lot of people just don't think like you and I do, and the folks watching. So I really appreciate you coming on, Tommy. Where can people find you, train with you, et cetera?
Yeah. So one thing that I think sets us apart, Rich, is as the owner of the company, I'm available to, I'm on the phone. My wife hates this, but I'm on the phone all day, all night, even customer service issues. I was on the phone with a pastor from California last night at almost 10 o'clock my time, walking him through how to access his online course because he was having some issues. And so I put my cell phone number out there. I put my email out there, and my wife hates it, but I'm available to anybody who needs me. I'll send you those links. I'll send you my email, my direct email, if anybody needs. What I tell pastors when I talk to them is, even if you can't afford the training right now, keep my cell phone, call me. Just let me be a resource to you. I offer them prayer. I pray over their ministry. I pray over their church and their safety. And so I'll send you those links. So if anybody out there wants to get a hold of me for anything, not just to buy something, I'm available. Yeah.
And if you're not a member of a faith group, but you understand that we live in very challenging times, November the 17th to the 21st here in East Tennessee, we're having our high risk environment course. We've got a great lineup of instructors. We're going to spend a week together at the Cedar Lodge here, enjoy the fall weather, 2 days defensive handgun, non-destructive breaching, so you don't have to punch a hole through the door like Tommy did. Yeah. But TAC medical, unarmed and armed combatives. I mean, we got everything from, I think and do you own Legal Heat?
I do.
That's your baby? Yeah. Okay. Then do you know Will Parker?
It rings a bell.
Out in Montana, I think he's one of your instructors.
Isn't okay? Yeah.
I heard him mention that he teaches that as well as some other stuff.
I think I have talked to him. We have so between Legal Heat and my other companies, I've got 300 to 400 instructors.
Wow.
And we got a ton of people involved in this.
Fantastic. Well, folks, check out AmericanWarriorShow.com if you're listening to the podcast for the show notes from today and all the links to everything that Tommy has to offer out there at Protect His House. Tommy, it's been a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, it has. Thanks for having me, Rich. I'm grateful.
Absolutely. We'll have to get together sometime in Knoxville or something.
Yeah, let's do it.
Guys and guys out there, Warrior Nation, remember the fight is coming. Got to be ready.